again, and then I want iface, eth1, inet. I want to set this to static, not automatic, not loopback, but static. So auto eth1 to bring it up automatically when we want to power it up. iface activate it, eth1 inet static to tell Ubuntu, hey, this I'm going to specify a static IP address. I don't want you to get an IP address from a DHCP server. 199.207.13.1. Now remember that this is the network portion, and this is the host portion, and that's my gateway. But I'm going to actually give it one. I'm going to do 45 here because I know that pretty much anything over 30 is not going to be, it's going to be available on this network. Your settings may be different, and there are many tutorials dealing with IP addressing and subnetting. I posted 4 or 5, and many other people have posted them. So it's well worth your time if you put some effort into it and learn how IP addressing and subnetting work, because these settings will need to be compatible to set up a static IP address. And let me go to netmask, and let me go to the broadcast address, 255.255.255.0, and the netmask here. There are different classes of IP addresses. So 1 to 126 would be Class A, 127 is a loopback, 128 to 191 would be like Class B, 192 to 223 would be Class C, and then you have multicast up in Class D and so forth. So there are different classes of IP addressing, but those different classes use different numbers of bits and bytes or octets for the network portion of the address versus the host portion. So in this case, I'm using 3 octets or 3 bytes or 24 bits for the network portion. I'm using 8 bits or 1 byte or 1 octet for the host portion. So this is sort of like the house number, and this is sort of like the name of the street, if you were to look at it that way. Alright, so that's my netmask. Now my network address, I'm going to do 199.207.13.0, and that, again, it just specifies that this is sort of like the street name, or that's the network address, and this is sort of like the number of the house that would be on the street, or the host portion of the address. My broadcast would be 199.207.13.255, and 255 is just all the bits turned on. In an octet, that would be a broadcast. And finally, my gateway, which is my router. It's sort of my gateway out to the internet or to the rest of the world through my router. So 199.207 and 13.1. Okay, so I want to configure all of these interfaces here, and you just kind of check and make sure if if you misspelled something, or if your numbers aren't right and your settings aren't right, then things aren't going to route properly. They're not going to configure. They're not going to work. So you have to be careful when you're setting up a static IP. But all right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to exit out here. I'm going to say yes, and if you ran with root privileges, you'll be able to save. Of course, if not, you will have to redo that. So I want to check my settings. ETH1, inet static, that looks good. The network portion is good. The host portion, netmask, network portion matches up. That's the network address. No, the broadcast is fine. 192.7.13, and the gateway is fine. So it looks like everything's okay there. And now I just want to go ahead and actually bring down and bring back up my interface. Now before I do that, there's also name resolution. And again, that's a whole another set of tutorials. You can spend a lot of time talking about DNS, but to be brief, it maps a host name to an IP. So when I type in www.yahoo.com, I'm really looking for an IP address. Or google.com, it's really just a number, an IP address, just like what we set up here. DNS is a server service all over the place. At the top level of the internet, set up by Anna. Your company has DNS servers, but at some point it maps. It sees your request for a host name and it turns it into a number, or maps it to an IP address. I'm going to check that file real quick. So I'm going to recurse out here, and I'm just going to cat resolv.conf. That's a lot of these are in the etc folder, but here I'm just using my router's IP, as a name server address. But if I wanted to, I could modify that. So if I said sudo nano and resolv.conf, and I could add another name server address in here. You have multiple name servers for DNS, and if I wanted to, I could use Google's 8888. Happens to be Google's, one of Google's top-level DNS servers, and I believe the other one was 8844. I'm not sure. I'd have to Google it, but I can't right now until I get DNS set up. I won't be able to Google it until I get my DNS set up. I'm going to exit. I'm going to say yes, yes, okay, and then now if I were to cat that file, alright, so there are my name servers. The next thing I need to do is, now that I've specified a static IP and I've uninstalled Network Manager, I'm going to use a couple of commands, and it shouldn't be up, but just in case it is, I'm going to say interface down, use the ifdown command, and the postfix it with eth1, which is the label. Okay, so it wasn't running, no such process. That's good. And now I want to bring it up with those new settings. This might take a few seconds to configure the static IP and the DNS settings. Well, it looks like everything's okay. So I'm going to just do if config, and I'm going to specify the eth1 interface. And notice now, before under DHCP it was 16, but now here's my static IP 45. And I just want to check a few other things too. I'm going to use ping, and I want to see if I can reach my gateway and my router, but without DNS, because how do I know if it's a DNS problem or if it's an IP address problem unless I differentiate between the two? So I would usually do this first, and I get some echo replies, so okay, I know that that's good. Doesn't mean my name resolution or my DNS is good, but at least I can get some echo, some packets back from the gateway and the router. So up to layer 3 we're okay. And then once I've ascertained that, now I might try some name resolution. So I'm going to try to ping Yahoo. Poor Yahoo gets tested all the time, and there I'm getting replies back from Yahoo. So everything looks good there in Google. And ping some Google there, and everything looks okay there. So there is my static IP. Okay. Now if I wish to go back to, and again, if I were a server, that's what I would want. I wouldn't want my IP address changing all the time. But let's say that I later decide that I don't want this to be a server. I just want to turn it into a workstation or a basic client, and I want to go back to DHCP. I can do that as well. To do that, I'm going to want to go into the network folder, and I'll print my working directory. But again, so etc network, and if you look at your interfaces file, alright, here's what we changed. Well, I kept a couple of copies, so you might want to use the copy command, but I just called this one interfaces DHCP, so cat okay. And all I have to do is simply delete interfaces and then use the cp command and copy interfaces DHCP to interfaces. That's how I do it when I switch it manually. But, again, just to maybe for some extra practice, or maybe you didn't back it up, maybe you didn't make a backup copy, we'll look at, how would I change the actual file. So I'd say sudo, I'll use nano again in this case, and I'm going to edit the interfaces file. Okay, and so what I need to add is just those two lines, which basically regard the loopback. So I'm going to go and just delete all of this content here. And again, that might be why you want to make a copy. You don't necessarily want to have to type this out every time you swap, switch back and forth between static and dynamic IPs. But I want to do auto and LO. I'm just going to put the loopback in there. And the only iFace setting is going to be the interface for the loopback, and I'm just going to be loopback. So iFace, LO, iNet, loopback, and auto low. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. And again, make sure you use sudo so you have saved privileges.